Hey everyone, it's me, Jonathan from Motorpsychology. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Your support is greatly appreciated and valued very much, so thanks a lot. In this video, it's all about putting together the refurbished and new parts of the right front suspension of the Corvette. So it was a long time coming, taking those parts out. I think I did maybe a year and a half ago. Then refurbishing them, moving on to a bunch of other projects, left those things out of the car a lot longer than what I initially intended to. Anyway, I'm getting all those parts back on, and that's going to be the main focus of this video. And at the same time, I'm taking all the left side off, and I'm trying to do that off camera super quick. I'm giving myself 4 weeks or something to get that done. But anyway, let's see how I got on with the right front suspension, getting that back together. So stick around and let's get into it. So I'm getting ready to install the lower and upper control arms and springs and shocks. So I'm going to be referring to this book here. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's this book here, How to Restore Your C3 Corvette. Gives you a lot of good tips and methodologies on how to do it. I also always refer to this book here, which is kind of like my working copy book. That's it there, the Haynes manual. And it has the procedure on removing and installing the control arms, plus what else is good is it has the torque specifications as well, which I always follow and get things torqued up to that level. So I'm going to get into that right now. So I found the original parts here and I labeled them a while ago. So these are the shims that are going to be required. These are going to be for the upper control arm facing the rear end of the Corvette. Same with these. These are the nose side, or the part of the control arm that's going to be facing forward. And I'm going to put in some new shims, so I'm going to make sure they're exactly the same. So in this shim package, you get some thick ones, some medium size, and they just keep on going smaller and smaller. So I'll be able to replicate exactly the thickness of the shims with the new ones. I've got this bumper that needs to go back on the frame. This one's a brand new one. Might as well put that in. And finally, I was able to locate the bolts as well, and I might just clean them up before I put them back in. So we're inside the right wheel well, and this is where the front bumper is going to go in for the control arm. So let's put that one in. So there's the bumper and it goes in there, but you have to put some sort of lubricant on there. So you could use Windex or something, but I'm going to use this Jet Dry formula, and the only reason I'm using it is it's super slippery. So I'm going to put that on the bumper. So I'm just going to put this in. Kind of cover it a little bit. It's definitely a lot slipperier, and that should basically slide right in with a little bit of force. All right, I'm back. I'm just going to tap it in with this guy here. There we go. And that bumper is back on there. All right, let's get our shims organized here. So this is the front side, or the nose side as I put it. And looks like a couple big ones and a super thin one. So let's see what we got in this package here. Get a super thin one out. That one will do. Got that one the same. And that one the same. So 2 of these and 1 of those. Perfect for the front end. Now let's check out the side that faces the rear. That's interesting. That one's got a thin one, 2 thick ones, and a medium one. So let's find those. Here we have the 2 thick ones. That would be a medium. That would be a thin. So there's our lineup for there. 2 thick ones, a medium one, and a thin to match these guys here, which are 2 thick, a medium, and a thin. So we get to set that up now. So here we are. There's the area where the control arm is going to go in. There's the bumper that I just put on. So I'm going to bring the control arm and set it up with the shims on there. Here's the shims that are going to go on this side right here. I want to put the small shims on the inside. There they go. The other set of shims are right here. Now we can start lining up the control arm. It's been a while since this guy was in here. It's nice and refreshed and ready to go. Great. I guess I'll be re-shimming in a second. Almost there. I'm going to use this wrench here to give me a little bit of positive control over this thing. All right, got to put the shims back in here. Okay, putting the bolts on here. There's what it looks like from the side. So we're pushing them in. I've got to go pick up the shims that fell out. It's looking close to get the shims in. So as you can see, we've got the shims in there, both sides, and it's just a matter of completing the fastening of these things and then torquing them up as well. For the end parts, you don't want to torque those things until you have your entire suspension set up. Then you can torque them as well. But for now, I'm going to torque those bolts, keep the shims in, and that will pretty much do it for the upper control arm. So let's do that. All right, these guys are on. I'm going to torque them, and they're torqued to 55 foot-pounds. My torque wrench is set to 55, and I'll just turn them until they click. That's 55. That's already at 55. So not extremely tight, but good enough. So there is the upper control arm with the shaft to the frame, and we'll torque these things later. So here's the upper control arm here. It's ready to go. The ball joint is installed. So now it's going to be a matter of just building the rest of the suspension. So we're back here with the lower control arm, which is a monster as far as size. It's pretty big, so you know, good size. The hardware that you need are the bolts that go through this side here, and they have a couple of lock washers on them. This thing sits on the frame, and these things screw into it like that. And then for this side over here, this pops down through the frame, and this tightens up that way, like so. So let's try and get this in place. So underneath the frame here, here's where the control arm bolts onto. So these are the two bolts here, and way over here, you've got the other bolt. So I'm going to get this set up and start getting it in. So let's see how that goes. All right, I've got all my hardware here ready to get it set up and installed. So first, this guy gets set up this way, and the washer goes on the top of the frame, not underneath. So let's pop that in. There we go, that one's in. And putting this thing in now. With these, the washers go on the screw. There, that's in position. Now we should be able to raise this up, which is a little bit tricky because it's not light. Go. Almost. Pop this bolt on just to keep it in place. Now I can get the ones in over here. Second bolt in. So this bolt here is huge. It's a, what is it, 7/8, and these little guys here are 5/8. So that one's going to go in there. All right, we're back under here, trying to get this last guy in. So I had to put a socket up there to control the top of this bolt while I can tighten up this one. It's a little bit of a handful to do this, I think. Once you have it set up, you're good. Slowly getting it. So this is what we just did. We put on the nut here, which is great. And then we also came over here and did this one and that one. So that completes putting the lower control arm on. I'm just going to torque them up and then we're done. So kind of nice to have the new bushings, and these are not torqued up, and they're not going to be torqued up until I get everything put together, but looking pretty good. So these bolts here are torqued to 70 foot-pounds. So I'm going to do that now. Got my torque wrench set up to 70, and let's do that. And we'll do this other one. 70. And double check this one for 70. 70. This guy here has to be done to 95 right here. All right, this one's ready to be torqued up to 95. Such an awkward spot. Whew. There we go. That's torqued up to 95 and these two to 70. So we're good with the attachment of this cross member to the frame. So that's good. Now we're ready to start putting on some of the steering components. Now we're getting to the stage where I've got to put this coil spring in, so it's got to be compressed, and there's a few things that need to be done with this as well. So this spring is an Eckler's coil spring, and we'll see how that goes in. So this is the lower control arm once again. That's going to have to go up there with the spring in it. The spring itself needs to go in a certain way, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of this anyway, but there's a little recess here, which is right in this space here. This is a better shot. There's a recess in there, and that's where the spring needs to line up. So it's got to go in, and that part of the spring needs to fit into that area. So not too difficult to do, but the spring is going to be compressed before I put it in. So I'm going to go back to the bench and compress the spring and then stick it in there. So as I was going to show, the spring needs to go in and sit like that, so it rotates into place, and then this can go up. It's a little bit more difficult because the spring is so big. The spring has got to kind of go in position first, and then that's got to be raised, and I'll show you that in a minute. So here's my spring compressor. I'm going to put these guys on so that they're more or less going down this plane, so in line with this, opposed to being that way. So they're going to align this way, and not too sure if it's going to make a difference, but that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put this thing in the spring. First I have to take this off. And I'm going to thread that up through here and set it up. And I'm going to put it on this coil here. And I'm going to thread this guy up through here. Get a bit of tension on this. I'm going to be using a 3/4 socket, an extension, and my impact gun on very, very slow. Let's give this a try, see how we get on with it. So we've got this on here. Now it's just a matter of tightening it up, and I'm not too sure if I have enough room on there, so I'm going to reset that up. So just raise that up a little bit. We will hopefully get something working on here. Okay, so we've got this thing in pretty good. Now it's just going to be a matter of tightening it up. So I've now tightened that up, hopefully enough to fit in there. So I'm going to get set up on the control arm. This is going to need to be jacked up or supported by the jack. All right. So I've got the spring in place. I just want to raise my jack up a bit. So the spring is in place here. I'm going to jack the control arm up a little bit more because I want to have space between the upper control arm and the lower control arm so that I can put in the steering knuckle. And that's going to be something that I'm going to be doing once I get this in place. So I'll be putting in the steering knuckle while this is still compressed. So what I've got here is the steering knuckle. That's going to be the first part to go on, and this is the top, and that's the bottom of it. So let's put that in. Hey everyone, that concludes the video on the upper right and lower right control arm plus the installation of the spring. Coming up right after this video in part 2 is going to be the installation of the steering knuckle and wheel hub as well, just to complete that job. I was going to put it in this video, but it made it too long, so I made a part 2, and that's coming up as soon as I can get it edited and up on YouTube, which will be in a day or two. So stick around for that one, and thanks again so much for your support. And other than that, we'll see you right back here next time.